Bridgerton 3 is one of the most anticipated seasons of the series, but it may not have met the expectations the past 2 seasons have laid down, and we know why. And this video will spell out all these disturbing details many have noticed but ignored, but also the reason behind it all. Ever since Bridgerton 3 was released, many people have binged it in one sitting and have even gone ahead to watch it over and over again as they anticipate the concluding part. However, no matter how you choose to look at it, something feels off about season 3, mostly because of how Penelope and Colin shared screen time with a lot of other characters. In the past seasons, the main couple was always on the screen and found themselves together in spaces where they got to explore their feelings and long for each other. But Poland barely even got that chance except the few moments alone and when he bribed her maid. From the beginning of the series until he proposed, they were never alone for too long without a distraction or people hanging around. Also, there wasn't enough yearning between Penn and Colin where we would have gotten crazy and creative lines like "I burn for you" and "You are the bane of my existence." The only build-up that led to their physical connection was the kiss they shared and the dream Colin had before he approached Penn to talk about his feelings. So many fans think that's not enough. They wanted Colin to beg, crawl, and bawl out his eyes before getting Penn's attention after neglecting her for so long. Instead, he was accepted on his first confession of love to Penn. With Colin and Penn being childhood friends whose story has been shown since season 1, we also expected a few throwbacks to how they really met instead of them discussing it. It would have been cute to see the young versions of Penn and Colin, just like we got to see the reason why Simon didn't want kids in season 1. We will soon reveal why the show ended up like this. As if the little romantic build-up shown wasn't bad enough for the starving fans who wanted more drama, the attention for Penn and Colin was also shared with many other minor characters. At one point, it felt too hard to keep up because many things were happening at once, which was rare in the past seasons. Even though they are meant to be the main characters, other supporting characters are taking center stage as well, like the Mondricks. It's a good thing that the Mondricks came into sudden fortune and are trying to adjust to the standard of the high society while still keeping their side business in the bar, but then we have yet to learn how their story benefits the new season. The Mondricks got a lot of attention for their insecurities, while Colin and Penn barely even had the chance to be seen pouring out all their hearts to each other. Then Eloise and Cressida also took center stage with their newly formed friendship. Again, it's interesting to learn more about who Cressida is than the mean girl aspect of her we've seen so far. But the crazy thing is that we know more about Cressida at this point than Colin. We got to learn why Cressida is the way she is and how she can also be a very good friend even if she's never had any real one in the past. However, there's Colin, and all we know is that he's traveled a lot. At the beginning of season 3, Colin seemed different and wasn't himself as he took the identity of a rake and a sweet mouth. Everyone noticed these changes, and the story even ended up in Lady Whistledown's column, but there's no explanation for why Colin took on a new appearance away from his real self. All we know is that he traveled to 17 cities and even brought back gifts for his family, but none of this was expanded on except for the brief moment where Penn read about his travels from his journal. So, little is known about Colin and how he's different from his family, as only Violet hinted that he loves to please everyone, which is exactly right based on how he dealt with the Marina situation in season 1. But most of these things Colin is unique for were only mentioned briefly in season 3 and not fully explored, which the new showrunner is responsible for, as you'll see in a bit. Then, Poland is also sharing their romantic stage with another interesting couple in the show, Francesca and John Sterling. While that might be needed to set up Francesca's story for her season, it has put Colin and Penn on the backstage of their own. Every lady who's getting married in Bridgerton always has interactions with Lady Danbury, the experienced mother of the ton, but instead of Penn getting those privileges from Lady Danbury, it's Francesca who's getting favored instead. According to the novel, Penn and Lady Danbury are meant to have a special bond, and it seems to be taking too long for that to happen. The plot lines got even more crowded, with Featherington's mother trying to cover up the forged document by getting her two daughters to produce an heir. Then, Lady Danbury's brother, Lord Marcus, also popped up, and even though it's clear his character might be created for Violet, it also kind of seems unnecessary with the many other details happening around them, and it seems as though everyone is finding a love match in Poland's season, which is totally unfair. Many fans are also not happy with the continuous raking of Benedict, especially with Lady Tilly, as they feel the production doesn't know what to do with Benedict again since they already skipped past his season to jump to Collins. In the past seasons, Benedict had much more going on for him, like his art, and except for keeping the Bridgerton accounts up to date in the absence of Anthony, he literally has nothing much going on for him. However, there have been some opinions that Bridgerton 3 is more focused on setting up future seasons than building up the tension between the main leads, and one of our sources confirms why. We didn't get to see more of the Bridgerton siblings' silly moments like before. In the season, Francesca complained about how terribly different she is from the rest of her siblings, who enjoyed chaos and noise. Aside from her playing music, we never saw Francesca tune out while her siblings disturb her in the background to support why she's so scared of having a large family. So far, all Bridgerton 3 has introduced us to are endless stories whose possibilities are too much to unpack, and a love story with no usual tension and heart-wrenching statements. Aside from the many plot lines trying to overshadow Poland's story this season, there's also been a major change in the costumes and makeup of the characters. In previous seasons, the character had subtle makeup which appeared natural. Aside from Penn, who was really meant to glow this season, Francesca and other characters also had very sharp makeup on, which sparkled as season 3 was said to be following the old Hollywood glam, which is different from previous seasons' inspirations. With how up-to-date the makeup looks with shiny eyeshadows and highlighters, some fans even joked that Francesca looks like she has seen an iPhone, which means her look is set in the present day rather than in history. However, the costume also looked pretty different this season, with many fabric and costume experts saying it's cheaper and not as classy. Instead of continuing with the gentle but wondrous looks of past seasons, Bridgerton 3 costumes are sparkly and attention-grabbing. Although Bridgerton never promised to deliver accurate Regency-era outfits, this season seems even a bit far off, different from what is used to. Looking back at some of the past outfits, a subtle silk dress like the one Kate is wearing has become totally eradicated from the show and replaced with fabrics that look cheap. The cheapness of the costume was also referenced in the show when Cressida ripped off Penn's dress even after she had spent a lot of money to get her wardrobe changed. However, the fine silk material used in the past wouldn't have been so easy to tear apart like that. The Bridgertons also had a very obvious change of wardrobe, which was different from how Daphne and the rest of them dressed in the past. Their gowns used to come with awesome embroideries that showed the excellent craftsmanship of Madame Delacroix, which is obvious in some of the dresses Edwina wore in season 2, but that's almost non-existent in season 3. Then, the gloves also changed drastically from a silky and finely finished one to a see-through which felt very modern and exposed. Also, Cressida's outfits might be telling a story, but it seems too extravagant for historical dresses. With the costumes being a big letdown, you would also notice a change in the languages used in Bridgerton 3, which was weird and sounded more current. The characters were saying words like pregnant, which in the past could have been with child. Then Francesca mentioned the microscope in a scene, and even though science had been developing by that time, the word wasn't supposed to be a common one to be used freely in sentences like that. Many more statements like what makes you tick and keep low profiles may have been a common vocabulary in the past, but felt very strange compared to how words like these were said in past seasons. While all of these make Bridgerton 3 stand out, it has also distanced it from the standards it set up when it first started, and all of these could be attributed to the change in the showrunner of the show. The former showrunner, Chris Van Dusen, who is the creator of Bridgerton, stepped down for Jess Brownell to take over. For a showrunner, every change or approval has to pass through their table before anything gets done. From the scripts, costumes, makeup, hair, set designers, and props, the showrunner decides which direction everything goes. Chris was doing all of this until Jess took over in season 3, even though they'd been working together on set before now, so that he could move on to other things while giving Jess a chance at creativity. Since they are two different people, the vision Chris had would be a bit different from Jess's work, as she had to put her own little spin on it. Also, a switch in showrunners is something that would hardly go unnoticed, no matter how hard they try to work in theme. What do you think of this? Do you agree or disagree, and did you notice anything?